Welcome and thank you all for standing by. At this time, all participants will be in a listen-only mode until the question and answer portion of today's call. During the question and answer portion, if you would like to ask a question, please unmute your phone, hit star 1 and record your name clearly when prompted. You may withdraw your question at any time by using star 2. Again, that will be star 1 to ask a question. Please stand by. The conference will begin shortly.
You are on hold for a conference call.
Please stand by. The conference will begin shortly. Again, please stand by. The conference will begin shortly. Thank you. And he is in the speaker's room.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, Stephen, this is Josh Finch. So I'll check with the speakers, Steve, Joel, Zeb. We have Jessica in the room, but Joseph and Arlena, everybody ready to go?
Ready to go?
Yes, I'm ready to go.
Good.
All right,
Joel,
great.
ready?
So operator, I think we're ready to join.
Okay, perfect. I'll do a 3-second countdown and do the opening scripting and then hand it over to you.
Okay.
All right, here we go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome and thank you all for standing by. At this time, all participants will be in a listen-only mode until the question and answer portion of today's conference. During the question and answer portion, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 and record your name clearly when prompted. If you would like to withdraw your question, you may press star 2. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. And I would now like to turn the conference over to Josh Finch. Thank you. You may begin.
Good morning and welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Josh Finch with NASA's Office of Communications. We're here to discuss NASA's SpaceX Crew-4 mission, the 4th crew rotation flight of the SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft on the Falcon 9 rocket to the International Space Station as a part of the agency's commercial crew program. Teams from NASA, SpaceX, and more just completed the launch readiness review for the mission. And here to talk more about that, we're joined by Steve Stitch, manager of NASA's commercial crew program, Joe Montefano, manager of the International Space Station program for NASA, Zeb Scoville, chief flight director, the flight operations directorate at NASA, Jessica Jensen, vice president, customer operations and integration at SpaceX, Josef Aschbacher, director general of ESA, and Arlena Moses, the launch weather officer from the U.S. Space Force 45th Weather Squadron. We'll start with opening comments from our speakers, and then we'll turn it over for questions. First, we'll go to Steve Stitch.
Thanks, Josh, and good morning, and thanks for joining us this morning. It was very exciting to see the Axiom 1 mission return safely yesterday. The crew looked great when they were getting out of the vehicle, and they were in really good spirits. Enabling these private astronaut missions has been one of our goals in CCP since the inception of the program. I would like to congratulate the ISS program, Axiom, and SpaceX on the successful first mission together. It was a great flight for us, and I think we learned a lot along the way. I would like to thank the NASA and SpaceX teams also. The engineers are poring over the data for the last 18 hours on the downhill part of that Axiom mission. It was a very clean flight overall, really no major issues. The teams have looked through a lot of the data, and they've had a chance to review everything. They've looked at the thermal protection system. They've looked at a lot of the GNC data from the flight. Obviously, the parachutes were very clean this flight. The mains all deployed and went to full open almost in unison, no indication of any lagger this time, which was great. Early this morning, we had our launch readiness review, and everybody pulled go, and now we're excited to move on to the Crew-4 launch. Our plan is to launch tomorrow at 3:52 Eastern from Launch Complex 39A. That would allow a docking to the station the same day on April the 27th around 8:15 p.m. Eastern later that evening. I did speak with the crew. Joel and I did this morning, and they're in great spirits. Really the next steps for Crew-4 are to watch the weather, and Arlena's going to give you a great synopsis of the weather. I think we've got a really good shot to launch on the 27th. And we'll press into the next weather briefing at about launch minus 6 hours when we start getting the vehicle ready to go launch. Overall, Dragon's looking very good at the pad, as is the Falcon 9. The final cargo load is complete. The teams are just wrapping up final checkouts and closeouts of the spacecraft and the launch vehicle. We were able to close out the open work we had after that flight readiness review, and all those items are closed for flight, and we confirmed that at the launch readiness review today. The recovery assets are ready to go, and our DoD rescue forces and the Coast Guard and all the other government agencies that support the launch are ready to go. I would like to thank the NASA and SpaceX teams again. It's been a busy time frame since the beginning of the year. With Axiom launching, we took it one step at a time, reviewing the data at each step, reviewing the weather at each step, making good decisions along the way. We'll be really excited to get Crew-4 up on station when the weather and the vehicles allow us to do that, and then can't wait to bring Crew-3 home after about a 5-day handover around May 4th or 5th. So thank you.
Now we'll go to Joe Montefano.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Steve, and again, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. You know, the International Space Station program is always excited to be on the eve of an upcoming crew handover, and with the completion of the launch readiness review earlier today, the space station program, including our international partners, are go and ready for the upcoming mission. You know, you've heard me talk a lot how busy the International Space Station is, and I think the last time we talked, we were talking about the return of Mark Vande Hei on a record-setting 355 days aboard the International Space Station with his Russian colleague Pyotr. With the completion of the U.S. first private astronaut mission yesterday, a successful mission on board, that sets us up for more of those missions in the future. Our long-term goal is to do about 2 private astronaut missions a year. And so this was a good start. There's some lessons learned, as you can imagine, as you do anything for the first time, but no major issues when the mission really went well, and it's exciting to have that mission behind us. Steve talked about the direct handover with Crew-3 and Crew-4, and so as he said, looking at a 5-day handover, and we think that's a good amount of time for the 2 crews to hand over and for the Crew-3 to come home. We're also tracking the Russian EVA scheduled for April 28th, and we're working with our Russian colleagues as we manage all these dynamic operations. The Crew-4 will dock to the Zenith or space-facing port on Node 2. That's the slot that was opened up with the undocking of the Axiom vehicle on Sunday night. Chell and Samantha will be making their second long-duration trip to ISS. And as I talked earlier, it's always good and exciting to see 2 first-time flyers in Jessica and Bob Hines visiting the International Space Station. Together, this expedition will do about 300 experiments while they're on board the International Space Station, including studies on the aging of immune systems and the cardiorespiratory effects during and after long-duration exposure to microgravity. And no rest for the weary. You know, when after Crew-3 comes home, we'll be looking at the Boeing OFT-2 mission with a launch date of no earlier than May 19th, followed right after that in early June. Right now we're looking at June 7th for the SpaceX 25 cargo mission. With that, let me hand it over to Zeb. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Joel. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the briefing here. First of all, let me just say that the crew on orbit is in extremely good spirits and doing well. They spent much of the day preparing for their departure after the Crew-4 arrived, so they're getting all their ship in shape, so to speak. The crew of the good ship Freedom are in quarantine now and excited to get the mission going. Flight controllers are at the top of their game, having finished all the simulations and preparations. We're really fired up to get this mission underway and get the Falcon 9 lit and off the pad and get Freedom up on its way to ISS. You know, I don't really look at this CCP flight as a NASA mission or necessarily a SpaceX mission. This is really a mission for the people of planet Earth. This is your space program, and we're excited to get on with humanity's goals. Thank you very much.
And we'll now go to Jessica Jensen.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just add on to what Zeb was saying. Yeah, it's such an exciting time for spaceflight. Like, it to me demonstrates what humans are capable of. It's pretty wild. So yeah, yesterday we brought home the Axiom 1 crew safely, and then tomorrow we're going to launch Crew-4. This will actually be SpaceX's 31st Dragon to the International Space Station, which is also another just wild fact. Launch is at 3:52 and 55 seconds a.m. Eastern Time. The crew will head over to the pad at about L-3 hours and 15 minutes, so you can look out for that on the broadcast. And then docking will occur for the Wednesday attempt. Docking occurs about 16 hours later. From a orbital mechanics point of view, we also have launch attempts on Thursday and Friday. So if weather or any other issue puts us off, we can try for Thursday and Friday as well. Each of those days, the launch time moves back about 20 minutes. So once on orbit, yeah, the Crew-4 astronauts will do a handover with the Crew-3 astronauts. Then SpaceX will bring the Crew-3 astronauts home on Dragon Endurance, and that will overall complete our 6th human spaceflight mission within 2 years. And that's truly remarkable since all this has been done through the pandemic. I just want to thank everyone, you know, on the NASA side, the SpaceX side, all the teams that have made this happen through the pandemic. It's remarkable. And, you know, as exciting and as busy as everyone's been talking about, I just want to reiterate that safety is still and always the top priority. We have these schedules, there's ISS traffic constraints, all of those are super important, and we're always going to do our best to meet those. SpaceX tries to make our operations as flexible as possible. We always want to maintain several launch opportunities, as many return opportunities, return locations as possible. But if there's an issue, we work with NASA, and if that causes a schedule delay, you know, it's always worth it. So we hope that doesn't happen, and we, you know, aim for that not to happen, but safety is always first. So if that has to move schedules, that happens. But the good news is, as of now, vehicle hardware, vehicle software, the launch pad, all the personnel and recovery systems are go for this mission. So as always, we're grateful for the NASA partnership and the opportunity to fly Crew to the International Space Station. It's been an honor for our team to train Chell, Bob, Jessica, and Samantha for this mission. We also want to thank the 45th Space Wing and the FAA for their support of these launch and recovery operations. And we're looking forward to a great mission.
And we'll next go to Josef Aschbacher.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me on this call. First of all, really congratulations to Axiom and SpaceX and NASA for the success of the first commercial mission. Really very nice to see that, and great achievement, and very happy to really also witness this part here in Florida. Coming to ESA, the so-called international partners, we have Samantha Cristoforetti on board together with the 3 colleagues from NASA. Very happy about this partnership, which we have now with NASA and also SpaceX for quite some time. Samantha will be the 3rd astronaut in a row of ESA flying to the space station. We had Thomas Pesquet for about 6 months, Matthias Maurer now in orbit for about 6 months, and then now followed by Samantha. So this is really a period of almost a year and a half where ESA has an astronaut on the space station almost continuously, I say, because there was a very small gap between Matthias and Thomas Pesquet. But this is really a unique period for us. It's the first time that we have such a long continuous operation and presence on the space station. And it's also showing that in Europe we are really gearing up on human exploration, and we have quite some ambitious plans to become an even stronger partner to NASA and others in human exploration. Maybe worth mentioning is that we are preparing ourselves in Europe for a major funding opportunity. We call it the ESA Ministerial Conference, and the presence of Samantha in orbit is certainly extremely important for us to support this process of reaching this funding for our human exploration activities. And also, I've been asked just recently on the 16th of February, where we organized a Space Summit, which was attended by all the ministers of ESA and the European Union member states, but also presided by President Macron, to really look into where Europe should go medium to long term in human exploration. And the big question, of course, is how do we become an even stronger partner? What capabilities do we need in terms of launching human-rated transport, low Earth orbit presence, but certainly also towards Moon and Mars. And here I really would like to underline the extremely good partnership we have with NASA on all of these activities. It's just a pleasure to work with NASA, a very strong partnership which we have here on many domains, but certainly also on human exploration in particular. And this is something where we in Europe really gear up. And this mission here of Samantha from the European side together with the 3 astronauts is key for us, and therefore really a big thank you to all the partners here. A big thank you to SpaceX for the flight, and for NASA for this strong partnership which we have for many years. So thank you from my side.
And now we'll go to Arlena Moses.
Good morning, everybody. So the weather, we're going to be in a bit of a lull period here in between systems. The same kind of break in the weather pattern that allowed for us to land Axiom 1 is going to benefit us for the launch of Crew-4, where we're lighter winds, not much of a threat for precipitation going into late tonight into tomorrow, early tomorrow morning for our launch. Right now, looking straight at the right at the launch site, we have a probability of violation. So looking right at the launch site weather, only about 10%. Just tracking the potential for a few clouds. Always, anytime we can get some clouds, especially off the water, can see a sprinkle or two, which is something we'll be looking at as well. But overall, still looking pretty low. Weather's looking good for that time frame. Going into, if we have to look at further launch delays, we do have a weather system that will come in kind of late Wednesday night into early Thursday that may be some watch item if for any if we have to go into our backup time. Or, however, that does push by us pretty quick, and if we have to look at further times beyond that, weather looks, once again, really good into Friday morning. So, kind of a summary once again, really not tracking too much weather concerns for our primary launch opportunity here Wednesday morning.
Thank you, Arlena. And we'll now turn to the question and answer portion. To enter into the question queue, please press *1 on your phone. And our first question will go to Marcia Dunn at the Associated Press.
Hi, good morning. If both Joel and Mr. Ashbacher could answer, please. This crew has equal representation among men and women, and I believe a first for NASA and a rarity in the world at large. How important is that from NASA's standpoint to have women represented at 50% on this crew, and will we be seeing more diverse crews like this one, and is it something that NASA and ESA are deliberately striving for? Thank you.
I'll start and then I'll hand it over to Joseph. You know, diversity is something that as an agency we continue to work on and look for areas of improvement. It is absolutely important to us. You'll see it on this mission and you'll see it on future missions. And it's not only in the astronauts that are flying the International Space Station. You'll see that in the workforce as well, both in the civil servant and the contractor workforce. So to answer your question, it is important. It's something that we're always going to continue to improve, and it makes us a stronger agency and a stronger human spaceflight across the globe.
Well, thank you. Also, from my side, from the ESA side, having Samantha as a female astronaut, she is actually the only female astronaut in the current astronaut corps of ESA, but having her is hugely important. She's a role model, and I can say that the echo that she gets in Europe, but also beyond Europe, also here in the US and in other countries, is quite remarkable. And really people look up to her as a very good example of what can be achieved. Let me mention two more points in this context. We just had earlier this year, a call for the next round of astronauts. We got more than 22,000 applications, and out of those, we have a share of 24% female applications, which is much more than we had in the previous round about 10 years ago, where the share was around 15%. So also, for sure, Samantha's work has inspired many female applicants to submit an application, and the share is much bigger. We are now going through the selection process, and in fact, the share of female applicants still in the race is much higher, is close to 40%. We're still in the middle of the process, but just to say that we are putting a huge emphasis on making sure that we have a good balance of gender. But also, another point is quite important. Gender is, of course, one important element, but we also have opened a call earlier this year for para-astronauts. That means astronaut with some kind of handicap, of course, being fit in all the other aspects needed for astronauts. And this para-astronaut call is quite important for us as well, because we would like to show that people with a small handicap can also go to space, and space is open really for I would say many people, I'm not saying everyone, but for many people, and that we really want to widen this approach. So this diversity aspect is very important for the European Space Agency, and I'm very glad to see Samantha playing a very important role in that. Thank you.
And our next question is from Stephen Clark at Spaceflight Now.
Hi, Stephen Clark, Spaceflight Now. Thanks for doing this morning. First of all, I just wanted to clarify if maybe Joel or Steve Stitch can clarify the expected duration of the Crew-4 mission. When is, if all things being equal, when is this mission expected to come back to Earth? And also, looking back at Axiom 1, I know you're going to take some time to go over the lessons learned, but with the 7-day extension that had ripple effects into the Crew-4 mission, any preference going forward maybe to have more separation schedule-wise between these private astronaut missions and the regular NASA crew rotation flights? Thanks.
Yeah, I can take the first part about the duration, then I'll let Joel comment about the spacing between the flights. As Joel and I both said, the plan is to have a dock duration for a handover of about 5 days in between the Crew-3 and Crew-4 astronauts. So if we launch tomorrow as planned at 3:52 a.m., we would dock about 8:15 p.m. that evening, and then stay docked for 5 days with an undocking around May 4th, and then probably a landing about 1 day later on the 5th. So depending on weather, that's the overall plan. And I'll turn it over to Joel.
On spacing between flights, we started with a little more spacing than what you're seeing here between the Axiom and the Crew-4 mission. And that's always our goal, right, to space these out, give you some time to work any issues you have either in vehicle processing or traffic on board ISS or weather. And so one of the lessons learned out of this is to see if we can define a better spacing in between the missions. Now, our ultimate goal is what we're trying to do is obviously have the Axiom 1 mission, the Crew-4 mission, get Crew-3 home before the high beta period in May, and then be ready for the OFT-2 mission also in May. And so we're not always going to have all these constraints. We're also working around the Artemis wet dress activities. It just happens, spaceflight tends to be a magnet of dynamic activities. They all tend to draw together. But there are a handful of lessons learned that we picked up on these and things that we'll do a little different in the future.
And our next question is from Eric Berger at Ars Technica.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for doing this. 2 questions. First, for Stitch, is the GN2 work at Kennedy going to affect the Starliner launch date, which I think moved forward to May 19th? I know they're doing some work on that this month. And then, Mr. Aschbacher, you mentioned your upcoming ministerial, and I know in February your European astronauts asked for independent crew transport to space in a manifesto, and I know you support that. So I'm wondering what you learned about the challenges of human spaceflight from your visit here to Kennedy over the last week or so, and what do you plan to ask for specifically at the ministerial in terms of human transportation to space? Are you looking for money to start developing that, or when does that happen? Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's see, Eric. This is Steve Stitch. I'll answer the question about the GN2 outage for Artemis. Yeah, we've strategically spaced that outage really in between the Crew-4 launch operation and then the GN2 needs for the OFT-2 preparation for launch and launch. So it shouldn't affect OFT-2 at all. The plan is the contractors and the Kennedy Space Center are really ready to go execute this outage as soon as we get off the pad. So they would start that as soon as possible and then get the GN2 back up and ready for the Starliner flight. And really, Artemis needs a lot more GN2 than either the Falcon 9 or the Atlas launch vehicle. So really shouldn't be a problem at all. So I'll turn it over to Joseph.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Eric. this question. Really good one. The manifesto, which was prepared by the astronauts, was a very important part of a wider campaign to raise the awareness of human exploration in Europe. As you know, today Europe is actually spending much less money than NASA, for example, on human exploration. And it's not only about the money, but we would like really to be a stronger partner in this international landscape of the commercialization of exploration, which is ongoing. I had the opportunity to see quite a few very interesting companies while being here at Kennedy Space Center, and I have to say I'm deeply impressed. What I see is really impressive. It is extremely fast how this develops, and I'm really inspired by all the activities that NASA has put in place with the commercial crew program, but also the commercialization overall. And this is something I would really like to learn from also for Europe, of course, being a much smaller partner than NASA, but certainly very, very good lessons to be learned, and it's really eye-opening in many aspects. So what are we planning for the ministerial at the end of the year? We have a quite significant program proposal in preparation. As you might imagine, this is all in the midst of negotiations, so it is too early to really say what will be the final outcome of it. But I can say that the envelope which I have allocated for exploration is 50% higher than the last time, which was already a nice increase compared to previous times. So I really would like to increase the activities. Our focus is, of course, on continuation of the ISS operation. Then we are preparing a large lunar lander program, the so-called EL3, which will be going into the next decade. It will be launched at the end of this decade, but going into the next decade with a number of copies of the lander to really transport large volumes, large amounts of mass to the moon on a routine basis in the next decade. And also we are preparing a strong program together with NASA on our participation on the Mars Sample Return mission. And as you have seen from the press, we need now to find a solution for ExoMars, which was, of course, until very recently conducted with Russia. But our member states have decided, but I've proposed to the member states to suspend the ExoMars launch, which was planned in September this year, despite the fact that everything is ready to fly. And now we need to find another way forward to bring ExoMars into orbit. That means the rover, the Rosalind Franklin rover, to the Mars surface. And that is quite some work to do. And we are now doing studies to see what the options are. But also we are discussing with NASA on some of the aspects whether and how NASA can be supporting this part. I really want to say that NASA was immediately reaching out to me and to us in ESA to offer some support, and we are working with them also on some of the studies. So this is really, I would say, very exciting and is very good. And maybe one last word. As I mentioned before, we had the Space Summit on the 16th of February, where this manifesto of the astronauts you mentioned, Eric, was presented. But I was also asked to install a high-level advisory group of experts, not necessarily from the space domain, but representing society, so politicians, economists, historians, explorers, to reflect on where Europe wants to go in human exploration in the next decade. And we have about a year and a half time to prepare decisions for top-level politicians, heads of state, ministers in Europe. And I'm planning another space summit in November next year, where these elements should be brought to the table for decisions. Of course, we have yet to go into this work. We got the mandate in February this year. I'm starting this work very soon. But by November next year, we should have all the elements on the table to decide where Europe wants to go medium to long term in exploration. Thank you, Eric.
And our next question is from Bill Harwood at CBS News.
Hey, thank you very much, guys. Hey, Steve, I think Stephen Clark was actually asking about duration of Crew-4. Are you still planning to bring Crew-4 down around September 13, somewhere in that ballpark? And for the record, Can you talk about the weather up the corridor? I mean, I know it's obviously go or you wouldn't be launching, but are there any areas of concern at all in terms of winds and wave heights, things like that, downrange? Thanks.
Yeah, Bill, I'll answer your question. Yeah, the planned duration for Crew-4 is to land right before the next crew rotation mission, the Soyuz, in September. The Crew-5 launch in that time frame will be the spacecraft, the Crew-3 spacecraft. So yeah, that's the plan, is to turn that around. And then relative to the abort corridor, right now the weather looks pretty good. You know, we're watching this cold front very carefully that's moving across the southeast United States, and the position of that looks pretty favorable for winds. We'll watch precipitation very carefully right around the staging area. We could have a little precip associated with that front where the staging points are, and we'll watch that very carefully. But otherwise, it looks like the abort corridor will be pretty good for a launch tomorrow.
Thanks.
And our next question is from Jeff Faust at Space News.
Good morning. For Joel or Steve, looking ahead to Crew-5, when do you have to make a decision on who will fill that fourth seat on the mission, whether it'll be a Russian cosmonaut or a NASA astronaut, given that you have that launch now coming up in September? Thanks.
Yeah, this is Joel. We're looking at the mid-June to late June timeframe. And just a few more words on that, just to give you an update on where that is. That agreement is still in the Russian government side, and we're hoping to get that back in early to mid-May. And then we'll do one more check with the State Department on that, but that's the schedule and where we stand on that.
As a reminder for media, to get into the question queue, please press *1 on your phone. And our next question will be from Megan Bartels at space.com.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. I think this is for Joel. Do you have any concerns about the close turnaround between the arrival of Crew-4 and the Russian spacewalk that's currently scheduled for Thursday? Thanks.
So we've been tracking that and talking to our Russian colleagues. Right now, the way it's set up is the docking will occur about 14 hours or so, a little over 14 hours prior to the start of the EVA. In fact, we have changed the timeline a little bit than what you normally see, in the sense of the welcome home ceremony will be a little later. The welcome home ceremony will be about 5 hours or so, a little over 5 hours after docking. That's because the Russian crew is going to be sleeping during this time frame, and so docking will occur about halfway through the Russian crew sleep, and then we'll wait till the Russian crew wakes up, and then we'll have the formal crew hatch opening ceremony. So we're making a little changes, but the teams are working well together, as we've always done with our Russian colleagues, and so we think we got a good timeline and ready to support an awesome launch on the 27th.
Great, thank you.
And our next question is from Marcia Smith at spacepolicyonline.com.
Good morning. Thanks so much. I was wondering about, in terms of the number of crews that are going back and forth and the desire to have more private astronaut flights, the limiting factor is docking ports. When Axiom starts launching their modules to the ISS, will they be providing any additional docking ports? Will that give you more flexibility on launches?
And so, as you probably are aware, we'll be berthing the Axiom module to the front of the space station, and we're going to move that docking port to the nadir. So from an ISS standpoint, we will maintain 2 docking ports. Now, the Axiom modules will have some docking ports as well, but from an ISS standpoint, we'll have 2 docking ports. And what we'll do is, right now, as you know, we have 2 docking ports and 2 berthing ports. we'll we'll still maintain 2 docking ports and go down to 1 berthing port. But Axiom is planning also to have docking ports.
And our next question is from Joey Roulette at Reuters.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Question for Joel. I just wanted to follow up on Jeff's question. Are you expecting the Russians to get back to you about the crew seat swap agreement by May? Do you expect them to agree? Like, is that something that they said that they would do, like, as far as the time frame? And also, is everything kind of cleared on the U.S. side? Like, have you discussed with the State Department? Is the State Department kind of signing off on this? Are they good to go? And is it just a matter of waiting for the Russians to respond? Thanks.
So, as you can imagine, we're talking to our Russian colleagues on a regular basis on this, and they've told us that it's in their government approval process with the expectation that they'll get a decision in the May timeframe. You've probably seen in the Russian press that they've been supportive of the crew swap, and so we're expecting a positive response from the Russian government. Once it gets from the Russian government, the way the process sets up is we have another tag up with the State Department in case there's any changes were made or if there are additional questions. And so as soon as that approval or decision gets made from the Russian government, we'll go engage with the State Department. But people are aware it's coming, but we'll have another discussion with the State Department on the status.
And does that also apply for the 2030 agreement with the Russians? Thanks.
Yeah, so that process is a little different process, and so that is, I'll say, secondary to the crew swap, and so that process will go through Roscosmos and the Russian government on the extension, as it'll go through with all the partners. And so all the partners are having that same discussion on 2030. And the goal is to wrap that up at late this year or early next year with a status on all that.
Thanks.
And our next question is from Jim McKenna at Aerospace Tech Review.
Good morning. I believe this is for Jessica. Would you please characterize the Axiom 1 Dragon's role in the ocean in terms of its cause as far as you know it, and did you expect it, and did you get any commentary or assessment from the astronauts on board after full recovery? Thanks.
Hey. So, yeah, basically leading into recovery, we're always checking the 2 most important things, wind and waves. Basically, you know, what is the wave height and what is the wave period? And we were well within our nominal splashdown criteria. So, yeah, you always see the capsule, you know, bobbing around a little bit. That's typical. So, yeah, this was well within our expectations of what a Dragon capsule would see.
And our final question is from Marcia Dunn, the Associated Press.
Yes, thanks for a second question. For Joel and Zeb, if you don't mind, I know you still have a lot of review to do on the recently completed Axiom mission, but there must have been some, you know, trepidation, concerns going into having non-professionals show up for 2 weeks, as it turns out. Do you get a good feel as to whether just about anybody with minimal amount of training could go up and spend a week or 2 at the space station? What's your take on what's required of visitors and how skilled one needs to be? Thanks.
Well, I'll start and then Zeb can join in. I would disagree with minimal. These guys took this very seriously. They trained at SpaceX. They trained at NASA. They asked a tremendous amount of questions of, hey, what do we need to be doing on orbit that's helpful for you? Here's some things that we're planning on doing. Does that work with you guys? To me, the most important thing is that these guys had the right attitude. They were there as visiting, I'll say, crew members. They were very respectful. They blended in. They worked well with the team, but they were trained. They were trained to go do a job. They just didn't pop in on space station. These guys were preparing for the mission, and it was a pleasure to have them up there. And I'll hand it over to Zeb if he wants to add anything.
Yeah, Joel, I agree with your words. You know, the International Space Station is not a vacation spot. It's not an amusement park, and it is a international laboratory. And they absolutely understood and respected that purpose and the efforts that have been devoted to this space station over several decades now, and maintaining and preserving it so that we have this resource going forward is important to all the international partners and also to Axiom and private astronauts. And so with that, we do focus the training to make sure that they know how to be there safely. We also want to make sure that the barriers to entry for the commercial and private astronaut missions are possible and not prohibitive. And so with that, we have to find out what is absolutely needed to be able to get them prepared so they can be effective with their own mission objectives, and while at the same time preserving the asset that we have in the International Space Station. And with that, really fostering a economy in low Earth orbit that does enable a greater segment of the population to be able to go. But with that, this isn't something that is taken lightly, to be able to ensure that people that go there are safe and protecting both the vehicle and the astronauts that go.
Josh, if you allow me just to add one more word, this is Joseph Aschbacher from ESA. I can confirm that the Axiom crew was training also in Europe. They have been at the European Astronaut Center for a couple of days. I actually met them, and I really just want to confirm what NASA was just saying, that this was a very professional training they have been undergoing, including also a couple of days in Europe. Thank you.
And thank you. And that's going to wrap things up for us here. NASA's SpaceX Crew-4 mission is targeting launch at 3:52 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Wednesday, April 27, from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy. We'll begin our live NASA SpaceX coverage at 12 a.m. Eastern on launch day and continue the broadcast through docking and hatch opening. We'll also bring you coverage of the welcome ceremony at the International Space Station on Thursday, April 28th, about 2:40 a.m. Eastern. Our next event for this mission is at 9 a.m. today, Tuesday, April 26th. Tune in for the NASA Administrator Briefing on NASA Television, the NASA website, and the NASA app. Have a good morning. Thank you.
Thank you all for participating in today's conference. You may disconnect your line and enjoy the rest of your day.